I felt like my mind was trying to protect me from something and I didn't know what it was trying to protect me from.
Survivor Tribe sat down with 4 survivors of sexual trauma.
Hi, I'm Angie and I'm a survivor.
Hi, I'm Jules and I'm a survivor.
Hi, my name is Citra and I'm a survivor.
Hi, my name is Finley and I'm a survivor.
To discuss their experiences with repressed memories.
I was questioning what was real, what was not real, what was my imagination, because I was always told I had a vivid imagination, that I made things up, and I was wondering, am I making this up?
Here is what they had to say.
When I'm in my first marriage, I didn't realize I was being sexually assaulted, and I didn't know you could get raped in a marriage. And I knew I was sexually assaulted or molested as a child. So I think during the first 3 years of that relationship, um, I was being assaulted and raped without realizing it. So that first memory, that first repressed memory, looked like it was like a flashback of an incident that happened as a child, as it was happening with my ex-husband at the same time. And that was a wake-up call to what was actually happening, but nothing changed for a while because, I thought I was going crazy. So, yeah, that was a very real wake-up call to what was happening for me.
I think for me personally, it was also kind of emotions that came back first. It was more so I felt like my mind was trying to protect me from something and I didn't know what it was trying to protect me from. Because the person who harassed and assaulted me used to be one of my closest friends at the time. And we were, I want to say 14 through 16 years old. So it was like early high school. Um, I remember I moved away to go to a boarding school and I just immediately cut off communication with him, which was surprising to me personally because I knew that I was like missing him and, missing all of my friends back in Russia. But I was in touch with all of them but him. And whenever I would go to text him, something in me would just go, nope, don't do that, Finley. Like, that's a bad idea. And then things started coming back and everything just kind of began to make sense, like why I was feeling like I shouldn't be talking to him, why text messages from him would make me kind of crumble inside, things like that. And that happened only 2 years after I almost cut off like all the communication with him. So it kind of felt like things just started to fall into place, first emotions and then flashbacks. Because for me, it was prompted by Dr. Ford's testimony in the, well, now, yeah. Um, so yeah, it felt like pieces of a puzzle coming together.
For me, I think it has an effect by being an only child and also by having witnessing a lot of domestic violence and arguments at home that it comes easily for me to disassociate myself and like just get out of my body. So whenever I was in a situation where I was assaulted by my partner or by a stranger, or whenever these sexual harassments and violence occur, it's easy for me to just get out from my body. But then these nightmares and flashbacks would come back, and like in the most random time. So I think it's one way for my body to let me know that this happened to you, and you have to deal with it, you have to feel it, because you can't just keep running away. So I think all these repressed memories came from inside the home, where it wasn't any, sexual incident related, but I think just the way that I was brought up and the way that I grew up um, had an effect on those potentially becoming something like a relapse or something that I would have to confront.
For me, it started with feelings as well, a lot of confusion. I was in a 9-month relationship and I was sexually assaulted and emotionally abused throughout that relationship. But when I was in it, I didn't focus on that. I focused on like the toxicity of the relationship and like the push-pull factors. But I didn't realize what was happening to me was abuse until this August. I just kept going to therapy and questioning, why am I not over this? It's been 2 years. I kept thinking that what I wanted was closure from this person. And like I needed answers about the relationship, when the reason why I was so depressed over it and had all of these emotions was because I was sexually assaulted, and it took 2 years for me to realize that's what happened to me.
True. Just, I was questioning what was real, what was what was real, what was not real, what was my imagination, because I was always told I had a vivid imagination, that I made things up, and I was wondering, am I making this up? Am I just spoiled? Because I was always told I was spoiled. Um, so I had no idea what was real. Just, I was questioning everything.
Definitely true. I think initially I was questioning my memories because I was such close friends with that person that I didn't want to believe that someone who was, a really big part of my high school years could have done something like that to me. Now I have a different perception of that because I definitely blame the flaws in the education system more so than I blame him, because I know that nothing that happened out of like malicious intent. But that's a whole other story. For me, initially, it was that I didn't want to believe myself. And then when I realized that I can't keep ignoring it because it's clearly having an impact on me, on my sex life, on my romantic relationships, even on my like day-to-day life. Like if someone brushes past me in the subway, I just freeze for a second. So I couldn't ignore it anymore. And at that point, I was like, okay, well, something clearly happened. So I'm not completely crazy. And I went to my therapist and I started asking them a bunch of questions that were like, well, why does sexual assault impact people as much as it does? Because I was kind of seeking validation, but I wanted validation from, I don't know, reputable sources. And by that, I mean researchers, because I felt like, well, I can't just base everything off of my emotions, because what if they're lying to me, because I was denying myself my own truth for so long. And my therapist just validating me was really helpful, and then my friends validating me, like Jules said, was very, very helpful, because nobody was questioning me except for I was questioning myself. And that was the point where I was like, well, I don't have to be questioning myself. Like it's clearly having an impact on me physically and emotionally. But yeah, so true. Definitely makes you feel like you are spiraling and something's wrong with your brain when nothing's wrong with your brain.
True. Again, because of that, this orientation, this association, I tend to, as also as a writer, I tend to like dramatizations of narratives of storylines. But then when it's happening to myself, it's like, really, I went through that, I did that, especially during my um, college years in the States. It was, due to um, drinks and other substances, which makes things a little blurry, and which potentially invalidates my whatever I say. But then, of course, like the other said, friends' testimonies, witnesses, and everyone's story of what happened that night kind of pieces the puzzle. But then even the assault that happened when I was 14 at home, it was still that, because I was raised as this strong, independent girl, and even my parents didn't believe me because they thought I could take him, whatever comes my way. But that actually added pressure on me, because I was supposed to be acting tough, but inside I was dying to tell someone, and dying for anyone to believe me. So definitely went into like a deep depression after that.
I would say true because I just felt like something was missing, or like, I don't know, it was very hard because I was in a relationship where I had good memories with this person, and I just felt like these bad memories maybe were just in my head, that I was just being dramatic. Um, and it wasn't until I'm a president of a club at my school and I had to do this sexual assault training, um, in case like someone came up to me and shared their experience with me about someone in the club. And after watching the video, it clicked. And I was like, this is what happened to me. But at the same time, throughout my entire experience, I still questioned like how much of my thoughts and my feelings are really true or accurate. And it's taken like a therapist and, my friends to like validate me.
One of my first memories was I still cannot tell if I was actually awake or asleep or whatever, but it was either a dream, I was waking up, but it was my uncle's face, like right here, like right in my face. And like I could not move. I could not get out of my bed. And then it was like he was in my house, but I was an adult. He didn't live there. It was me and my ex-husband, but my husband would not be there. So I felt like I was losing my mind. And then there would be times where I would look at my ex-husband and it was like I was looking at my uncle or my other abusers, and it was just I was living in a circus in my head for a very long time, and it was very confusing for a long time. So I still have nightmares a lot, but they're not nearly they don't keep me like frozen in my bed anymore, and I'm not waking up screaming in the middle of the night anymore. So they've definitely gotten better. But that first dream where I could not even move my body, like I don't even think I could scream, that like it was very strange. It was very strange.
For me, I think the turning point of having remembered a memory was when I was in college. I was a freshman in the States, and we were going out partying one night, and my group of girls were going out with this group of, like, I think they were juniors or senior group of boys. And during the party, it was really clear that his friends, there was some type of like secret mission or this kind of challenge to make this one guy get with me. So it was very clear, like they were pushing me onto him and were like secluding me, separating me from my friends. And he at one point he actually took my phone away, so I couldn't contact anyone. So in that house, like this frat house, he took me upstairs, and actually the frat brothers were decent enough to like not have any of that happening inside their house. But what they didn't know was he took me outside, which was pitch dark, like in a parking lot, and he just kept like pushing my head down towards his like crotch and making me, and like undressing himself, and just kept saying, I know he was drunk, but he kept saying like, I know you want me, I can see it in your eyes, like I know you want me, just do it, and stuff like that. And at that moment it clicked to all the abusers and all the dating violence that I've had since I was, a teenager. And at that moment, it was a surprise to myself, but I actually, resisted, and I actually like screamed for help. And at the end of the night, all my friends gathered, they took my phone, rescued me. And then when we got back on campus, I actually reported him. And not long after that, because he had so many strikes, he was actually expelled from campus. So from that moment on, I think I regained my strength that I always knew actually I had. But so those questions or those wonderings at night on why didn't I just fight my abusers at 14 off? Why didn't I say no? Why didn't, everything, placing the blame on myself, all those years wasted and just vanished after all that. you know my voice do matter, and it did something. I saw justice happen. So I think from that moment on, even though I still have relapses of breath on top of my body and stuff, but um whenever I relapse, I give my strength to other survivors to speak out. So I think that was the turning point for me.
I just wanted to say, other than the answer, that I really relate to what Citra said, because when you relapse and go back to feeling small and scared and the trauma resurfaces, being able to like validate someone has such a powerful impact on me. And I'm not sure why, but I realized that last year, and it's incredible. So like, thank you for mentioning it. Like, thank you for bringing that up. Um, for me, my first memory, like specifically a memory that resurfaced, was when I was in my dorm room. It was my first year at NYU, and I was watching Dr. Blasey Ford's testimony against Brett Kavanaugh. And there is a moment in the testimony, and I watched it all the way through because it was for a class. So we were asked to watch like all of it and not just, the highlights that some TV channels make. And I remember distinctly a point in the testimony where she says that he pressed his hand against her mouth. That was like this point in the testimony. And I felt like there was just like this wave of cold water washing over my body. And I slammed the laptop shut, went to the bathroom because my roommate was in the room, and she was like, "Oh, is Finley okay?" And I just went to the bathroom, closed the toilet, sat on the toilet, and I was so confused because I was like, why does this feel like this had happened to me when it's her talking about her experience? And that was the first flashback adjacent moment I've had. And after that, I just started noticing how certain things would make me feel. And memories just started resurfacing after that, usually not even prompted by anything. More so, it would happen randomly. Like I would be cooking and then I would have a flashback, or I would be sleeping and I would wake up because I had a nightmare, and a nightmare would be another flashback adjacent situation. But that was the first time when I distinctly remember being like, she's talking about her experience. Why does it feel like it is my experience as well? Which it was, but at the time I was just so confused.
So I mentioned watching the video training, and what memory came to mind was the last time that I was sexually assaulted was in the school library. We were broken up at the time, and we weren't talking, and he came up to me and asked if we could talk. And I sat next to him, and he put his hand like on my thigh to talk to me, and I was like, can you not touch me? Like, can you not put your hand there? And then he like grabbed my thigh. Like, it was very aggressive. Like, it was just resting there before, and then he grabbed my thigh and he leaned over and he looked me in my eye and he said, I do what I want. And that was like, and in that moment, I just let it, like, I just froze. I was just like, we carried on this conversation like nothing was going on, like that. Like, my body felt like it was somewhere else, but in that moment, I just kept talking to him. I didn't yell. I didn't tell any of my friends in that moment that, hey, like, that was sexual assault. And, you know, even though it was just someone grabbing my thighs don't feel the same anymore. Like, I can't even personally touch my thighs without it feeling uncomfortable. And that's because he would touch them so often when I didn't want him to.
My parents never believed me. They still don't believe me. When I told my parents when I was a child, they did not believe me. They said, why would you say this about your uncle? Why would you say this about your family? Why would you say this about everybody? You know, growing up with all the instances that happened, anybody I told, they were like, oh, that person would never do that. That person would never do that. Why would you say that about that person? I can't believe you would say that about that person. Everyone. And then when I said that about my ex-husband to my mother, who I thought would believe me, she looked me dead in my eyes and she said, you have to make it work. You are a Filipino, you are a Catholic. Your grandfather paid for your wedding. It will look bad on your grandfather if you get a divorce. It is your duty as a wife. And I said, Mom, he almost killed me the other day. I am scared for my life. It is your job to make it work as the wife. You have to make this work. And so everything I've ever been through, she has always been the one to tell me that it was my fault. So I've never been believed. The only person who has ever believed me has been my grandparents and my husband now. So, and Survivor Tribe and everybody else who is not the people that I thought would believe me. So there are people who believe you. Just, you have to find them. It's not always who you think it would be.
I've been really lucky ever since I started coming forward with my story in college to be very supported and validated, because I mean, initially it was very like strategic of me. Who do I tell? And I knew that those people that I tell won't invalidate me, or at least, you know, like I had an inkling, and then that was proven right. So I got really lucky in terms of telling my story now, ever since I realized what had happened to me. But pretty recently, well, first of all, funny enough, in Russia, the culture are very, very similar to what Anji and Citra described. It's the you know, the person who has the vagina, it's their fault. It's their body. It's, you know, they're at fault here. They made the man want them or whatever. And I never thought about reporting my assault for many reasons, that being one of them. And very recently, I actually realized that, so the person who groomed me, which is a whole other story, I was very close with her at the time. She's much older, and I kind of treated her as like my older sister. I told her about what was happening between that former friend of mine and me, and she just said, well, that's not a big deal. That's fine. If a person just really wants you, they will do things like that. And that shut me down enough to never bring anything up, probably to suppress my memories. And then that led to, you know, everything that we've discussed before, kind of. So that was like one case of actual direct invalidation. But because I was so young and it was in the midst of everything happening, I think that had a detrimental impact on my experience. Like I'm almost certain that if she validated me then, certain things that have happened later with that person wouldn't have happened, you know? So I think like sometimes invalidation can have such detrimental impacts even on the situation itself, not only on the way you feel, which is enough of a problem in itself. But yeah, I'm very lucky now to have people who have not invalidated me and, you know, have always been there to be like, yeah, that sucks. Would you like a hug? Kind of. So
Oh yeah, true. I mean, I've lost friends over this. You know, the closest group of friends that I thought would always believe me and always have my back. But it in time, I not that I would justify what they've done by not believing me, but in time I understand where they're coming from also. I mean, they might not have the tools and the understanding yet, they might not have the knowledge yet, and the awareness, but just like Angie said, I think being an Asian woman, why our mothers have so uh, it's hard for them to believe is because I think they were raised by a generation that says that women should bear all her problems inside, you know, just keep it inside, bury it deep down, deal with it, get on with it, move on. So I think it's not um in my case, I don't think it's one person that didn't believe me that made me devastated. It's just that the whole culture and the whole system in itself. I mean, in Indonesia, even the police and all the law enforcements would not believe if you are a victim of domestic violence or rape. Even, you know, they ask for the story. They blame the victims by asking what you were wearing that night. You know, were you walking at home alone at night, um, stuff like that. Why did you trigger the men to do that? You know, men are just men because you're walking in a short skirt. You are the one, you know. So all of these patriarchal mindset is still heavy on our culture and beliefs on a day-to-day basis, even like catcalling and stuff. So I think the whole culture has disappointed and made this strange realization of, oh, you know, I grew up in a system like this, I grew up in a culture like this, that not that they don't believe, but they minimize the hurt, the pain. They laugh it off, you know. Or you know what to do, you know, if someone attacks you, we raised you right, so you should be able to fend for yourself. So just laughing it off as something, you know, nonchalantly, I think that's what hurts the most.
So in August, I watched that video, and also in August, I moved in with my mom, and I remember telling her about my experience for the first time, like after a year and a half, and my mom asking me, I thought you wanted closure for him. I thought you were sad. I thought you wanted him back. Why are you saying that you were sexually assaulted? And I was like, 'cause I was. And would go through my entire experience with her. She's like, why are you still letting it affect you? It's like, it's trauma, and I'm just realizing it now. Well, everything happens for a reason. Get over it. You were only together 9 months. He did it the entire 9 months. It wasn't just one time, and even one time is enough. Like, it felt like my mom was my like all of those doubts that when I have doubts about my own experience, like, is that what I really experienced? Or was it really that bad? My mom was like feeding those, it was like naming a person to my inner demons. And it's been very like re-traumatizing because my mom, I thought, would validate me, like her as a woman. And like, you know, I saw her, told her because I wanted validation, I wanted safety. But she's the only person that has questioned my experience.
It's really hard to say if having repressed memories causes barriers in a healing journey because every healing journey is different. And having the memories and not having the memories doesn't really make a difference to me, because in a way, your memories are repressed to protect you a little bit. And who's to say that having the memories, you're going to go forward and, you know, go through the justice system anyway, because going through the justice system isn't going to get you justice most times. In my experience, every time I've gone, it just caused more confusion, you know, more than anything. So if anything, I don't, it's hard to say yes or no to that. So it's a toss up.
Yeah. So I think for me, it was the case of I haven't had my repressed memories resurfacing for a long enough time for me to know all the barriers and all the ways in which they will impact me, or they have been impacting me. But as of right now, it more so feels like kind of a staircase, and each step, like the further up you go, the smaller the steps get, but initially it's like really hard to climb them because they're so tall. And it takes a lot of jumping to like finally grab the top of the step and kind of pull yourself up almost. But that's been my experience, at least, because it's kind of like conquering one thing at a time, especially because my sexual abuse had definitely impacted my romantic and sex life much more than any other aspect of my life. And I am very much a person who enjoys dating, and I am a very sexual individual. So it's been pretty detrimental and upsetting to me to know that, you know, those things are impacted and kind of like shattered, and I still have to like assemble the pieces back together. But it's definitely, yeah, for me, it's definitely a staircase. So I don't think those are necessarily barriers, but they definitely feel like barriers in the moment. But I think that they will eventually inform my relationships in ways that, like, I know that I can trust someone if I can tell them certain things. So I'm sure that it's going to be, if anything, it might have more of a positive impact. Not that what happened to me will have a positive impact, but rather like how I've been dealing with it.
Yeah, I also always say healing is a journey, not a destination. I think that's also the kind of mindset that people here have once you've been through this type of trauma, sexual trauma, that or you can just go to a therapist and then find the answers you need, and then you know you're all set, done, and that you're healed, you know. So in my journey of healing, and I'm still of course on it, which I think I'm gonna be on for the rest of my life. But it's funny how these repressed memories come back. Like I said, it comes in pieces, you know, bits and pieces. I could just be laying here watching something, and then I'd be like, oh, I went through that. Like maybe that's why, you know. So the more I watch, the more I learn, the more I talk to people, and the more resources that I see, I keep puzzling it all together. So I think having it does some way uh, like not it in some way it slows down the process of healing, but then um because it's a journey of that you'll take for the rest of your life anyways, why hurry? So get to know your body more, your memories more, your feelings, like get in touch with them slowly so that you can really deal with them one by one.
I think not acknowledging when it happened with sexual assault, I thought that was a barrier for a long time, because at that time I didn't tell anyone. Because I didn't tell anyone, there wasn't any witnesses and or like anyone that heard anything. You know, during that time, I probably could have had a lot of text messages that I could have reported to the school. You know, there were social workers at the school. There was every resource probably available that I could have at least tried. And I felt like I failed myself by not speaking up during that time, but I didn't realize what was happening to me. And then I had to come to terms with, like, even if I had evidence, who's to say that there would be justice? And like, what does that justice look like? Does that justice look like me reporting to the police and going through a trial, or being like, I don't think I could handle being gaslit by the justice system because I've already experienced it with my own mom. I feel like that was enough for me to be like, you know what, I know what happened to me. But at the same time, it was like, I also felt responsibility of like, how there's no way for me to stop this from happening from this person to anyone else because I don't have any evidence and I wasn't able. And my therapist told me like, that's not your responsibility. Like, that's not on you, it's on him. There's nothing you can do. That's very hard to accept.
I say trust your intuition. You have feelings for a reason. Explore them, see where they go. You might be able to dig up your own memories just from exploring them. Journal, meditate if that's what you're into, but just explore them and trust them. You don't have to have validation from somebody else to have validation. You know, there's feelings there for a reason. You know, trust your intuition, trust your gut. Um, we as women, survivors, men out there who have gone through this, we're conditioned to, not talk about this, push it under the rug, like just suppress it, suppress it, suppress it. But you have these feelings for a reason and they're there. And sooner or later, they're going to come up. So you might as well explore it when you have those feelings on your own, because if you don't, it's going to come up at a really inopportune time. So just explore it.
I think coming from a place of being a trans non-binary person and usually not seeing myself in conversations about survivorship, I would say it doesn't matter what gender you are, it doesn't matter what sexuality you are, it doesn't matter what gender the other person or people were who hurt you. You like whatever you remember, it's just as valid. It doesn't matter what identity you hold, it's just as valid as it would have been in any other case. That's like first thing that I think is really important. And then also, I was watching this YouTube video a while back, and I can't remember who made it, unfortunately. Maybe they'll see this, I don't know. But their partner told them when they had memories of childhood abuse resurfacing that maybe you are remembering those things now because your mind and your body know that you're strong enough to deal with this now. Um, Maybe it's the case and maybe it's not the case, but that was something that was really helpful to me personally because it made me feel like no matter how horrific this feels in the moment and no matter how much it makes me hurt, I know that there is something on the other side of it that will eventually lead me to have a better and more fulfilled life because I will no longer have those open wounds. And I might finally be able to approach them and start, and put stitches and start treating them kind of. So you are definitely strong enough to deal with this, but it sucks that you have to deal with this in the first place. And, you shouldn't be in that position.
Yeah, I second that also. Trust yourself. Your body knows a lot more than you give credit for. Um, and just don't let any of these invalidators affect you, but also don't let other survivors testimony think that you need to live up to their stories or compare your trauma with them, because especially now in this era is wonderful to see a lot of women and men and survivors speaking out, but also that could push someone to speak out before they're ready. So just because they think this is the time to do so. So trust your journey. Really get to know a lot more than you give credit for. So just trust yourself?
My advice is to take it slow, not to put pressure on yourself. And if you're comfortable, to reach out to professional help. Because for me, I mean, every person is different, but I first reached out to a therapist before friends or family. But again, everyone is different. And maybe that is my advice, that like everyone is different and not to compare yourself to